What began as routine promotion for Matt Damon's new film erupted into a shocking verbal sparring match on The Late Show, with Colbert crossing every professional line. The audience watched in stunned silence as Hollywood's good guy finally had enough of the host's increasingly hostile behavior. The studio lights seemed unusually harsh that evening. Perhaps it was an omen of what was to come. Matt Damon sat on the iconic blue guest chair, his practiced smile already showing signs of strain. Across from him, Stephen Colbert shuffled his note cards with unusual agitation, barely making eye contact with his guest during the commercial break. "We're back with Academy Award winner Matt Damon, here promoting his new film, The Meridian Protocol," Colbert announced as the cameras rolled, his voice carrying an edge that regular viewers would immediately recognize. Something was off. The interview started innocuously enough. Standard questions about the film, the shooting schedule, the ensemble cast. But observant viewers noticed Colbert's posture, leaning back, arms crossed, interrupting Damon's responses with increasing frequency. "So the film deals with government corruption," Colbert interjected, cutting off Damon mid-sentence. "Something you know a lot about, given your political leanings." A flicker of confusion crossed Damon's face. "I'm not sure what you mean by that, Stephen," Colbert smiled thinly. "Just that Hollywood loves to lecture America about morality while living in mansions behind gates." The audience's awkward titter dissolved into uncomfortable silence. The cameraman discreetly panned to Damon, whose expression had hardened. "I thought we were here to talk about the film," Damon said evenly. "Oh, we are," Colbert replied, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "But isn't your character just another self-righteous crusader? Like that time you explained diversity to black filmmakers on Project Greenlight?" The reference to the years-old controversy hung in the air. Behind the cameras, producers exchanged worried glances. This wasn't in the pre-interview notes. "That was a learning moment for me," Damon responded, professional but noticeably cooler. "I've acknowledged my mistakes and tried to do better. Not sure how it's relevant to tonight's conversation." Colbert leaned forward, a predatory gleam in his eye. "Just interesting how your on-screen personas are always the hero, the savior, the Jason Bourne complex. Must be nice, crafting your own mythology." The audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats. This wasn't the good-natured ribbing typical of late-night TV. This felt personal. "Look, Stephen," Damon said, his famous composure beginning to crack. "I've always enjoyed coming on your show, but I'm not sure what's happening right now." "What's happening," Colbert replied with exaggerated pronunciation, "is an actual interview instead of the usual promotional fluff piece. Is that uncomfortable for you?" A production assistant frantically signaled to go to commercial, but Colbert waved them off. The director, unable to cut away, could only watch as the train wreck unfolded in real time. "You know what?" Damon said, his voice quieter but more intense. "I've respected your transition from Comedy Central to this show. You've had some important conversations here. But tonight feels different." "Different how?" Colbert challenged. "Like you've decided before I even sat down that I'm the enemy," Colbert scoffed. "Hardly. But isn't it interesting how celebrities expect softball questions and adoration simply for showing up? The Matt Damon who talks about water conservation while using who knows how many gallons in your multiple homes." The audience gasped. This had crossed from uncomfortable to hostile. "Are you serious right now?" Damon set his water glass down with controlled force. "You want to talk environmental hypocrisy? Let's talk about the carbon footprint of this show. The flights you take, the waste produced. Or is selective outrage only acceptable when you're the one dishing it out?" The temperature in the studio seemed to drop 10 degrees. The band leader looked questioningly at the producers, who were now in full crisis mode behind the scenes. "Just pointing out the inconsistency," Colbert said with a dismissive wave. "The audience isn't stupid. They see through the carefully crafted public image." Damon's jaw tightened. "You know what? I came here as a professional to talk about a project hundreds of people worked hard on. Not to be your punching bag because you're having a bad day or chasing ratings. Or maybe, Colbert countered, voice rising, celebrities have been coddled too long by media who depend on access. Maybe the real story is how disconnected you are from the reality most people live in. The director finally made the executive decision, signaling desperately for the commercial break. The red light on camera 1 blinked off, but the microphones remained hot. "What the hell is this, Stephen?" Damon demanded, no longer performing for the cameras. "We've known each other for years. If you have an issue with me, why not say it? Backstage instead of whatever this ambush is?" The audience, though the cameras were off, could still hear everything. Phones were raised, recording what was quickly becoming the most talked-about late-night moment in years. "Maybe I'm tired of the act," Colbert responded, equally heated now. The humble Boston boy made good. The serious actor with serious thoughts on serious issues. As opposed to what? The comedian who traded edgy political satire for mainstream approval? "Don't project your sellout anxiety onto me." The words hit like a physical blow. Colbert's face flushed crimson. "You don't know anything about me or the compromises I've made," he hissed. "Clearly," Damon responded, unclipping his microphone. "And after tonight, I don't want to." The production assistant was frantically counting down to their return from commercial. 30 seconds. The floor manager was making desperate placating gestures to both men. "Mr. Damon, please," a producer whispered urgently. "We're about to go live again." Damon looked from the producer to Colbert, whose expression remained coldly defiant. "I think we've said everything that needs saying," Damon replied, standing up. "Sir, please just finish the segment," the producer begged. 10 seconds to air." "Are you walking away?" Colbert taunted, still seated. "Is this how Matt Damon handles tough questions?" 5 seconds. Damon paused at the edge of the stage, turning back to face the host one last time. "This isn't about tough questions, Stephen. This is about basic respect. Something you seem to have forgotten matters." The on-air sign illuminated. Millions of viewers tuned back in to see Matt Damon standing, Colbert in his chair, and an atmosphere that could be cut with a knife. "Well," Colbert said with artificial brightness to the camera, "it seems our guest has decided to—" "No," Damon interrupted, now addressing both Colbert and the audience directly. "Your guest has decided he won't participate in whatever personal vendetta is happening here. To everyone watching, I apologize that you're witnessing this instead of a normal interview. But I won't sit here and be disrespected for the sake of your ratings." The audience sat in stunned silence. This wasn't the scripted banter they had come to expect from The Late Show. This was raw, uncomfortable reality breaking through the polished veneer of late-night television. Colbert's smile remained fixed, but his eyes narrowed. "Disrespected? I'm asking questions your publicist didn't pre-approve. Since when is that disrespect?" "You know exactly what you're doing," Damon countered, his voice steady but intensity radiating from every word. "This isn't about tough questions. It's about you trying to provoke a reaction. Congratulations, you got one." The show's director was frantically signaling to the cameramen to keep rolling. Whatever was happening was television gold, however uncomfortable. Social media was already lighting up as viewers shared clips in real time. "Maybe," Colbert said, rising from his desk to stand at equal height with Damon, "the public deserves to see beyond the carefully crafted image. The real Matt Damon who lectures on privilege while benefiting from it at every turn." A murmur rippled through the audience. This had gone beyond awkward into something more personal. "More vicious. You want to talk about privilege?" Damon's voice dropped dangerously low. "Let's talk about the privilege of having a platform like this and using it to ambush guests instead of creating meaningful conversation. You used to stand for something, Stephen." Colbert's face flushed. "And you used to be authentic before Hollywood turned you into another manufactured personality selling movies and moral superiority in equal measure. The band leader shifted uncomfortably, exchanging glances with the musicians. This wasn't in any script they'd rehearsed. "I came here as a professional," Damon said, gesturing to the audience. "These people came to be entertained, not to watch whatever grudge match you've orchestrated." "What happened to you, man? This isn't the Stephen Colbert I knew." "Maybe you never knew me," Colbert shot back. "Maybe the cameras were always rolling during our previous conversations, too." A producer had edged onto the stage, clearly trying to diffuse the situation, but both men were too locked in their confrontation to notice. "Here's what I do know," Damon continued, his composure cracking further. "I've done your show multiple times. I've played along with your games, your skits, whatever you needed for content. And in return, I expected basic professional courtesy. Not this character assassination disguised as an interview." The audience's discomfort was palpable now. Some looked away, unable to bear witnessing what felt like the public dissolution of a long-standing professional relationship. "Character assassination?" Colbert laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that echoed in the tense studio. "Questioning the disconnect between your words and actions is hardly assassination. It's journalism." "Journalism?" Damon echoed incredulously. "Is that what you think this is? Journalism requires good faith, research, context. This is a hit job, and the most disappointing part is that you're better than this. At least, you used to be." The comment struck a nerve. Colbert's practiced television persona slipped completely, revealing something raw and angry beneath. "You don't get to lecture me about integrity," Colbert snapped. "Not when you've spent a career playing the everyman hero while living a life so removed from everyday reality it might as well be fiction." The floor manager was making slashing motions across his throat. Cut, cut, cut. But the director overruled him. This moment, however catastrophic for the show's relationship with celebrities, was television history unfolding in real time. Damon took a deep breath, visibly struggling to maintain his composure. "You know what? I didn't come here for this. I came to promote a film hundreds of hardworking people poured their talent into. People who deserve better than having their work overshadowed by whatever this personal issue is you have with me." "There it is," Colbert said with mock triumph. "When the questions get uncomfortable, pivot to the hard-working crew." Classic deflection. Something dangerous flashed in Damon's eyes. The audience collectively held their breath. "You want the unfiltered truth, Stephen? Fine, I've respected your evolution as a host over the years. I defended you when people said you'd sold out moving to network television. I believed you were still the same insightful, intelligent voice, just with a bigger platform." Damon gestured around the studio. "But this cheap shot artistry? This isn't evolution. It's regression." For a moment Colbert seemed taken aback by the directness of the attack. A flicker of something, regret perhaps, crossed his face before the mask of hostility returned. "Save the performance for your movies, Matt. It plays better there." "This isn't a performance," Damon replied, his voice now quiet enough that the boom mics had to strain to catch his words. "This is disappointment. In you. In what this show has apparently become." The studio was so silent you could hear the air conditioning humming. The band sat motionless, instruments forgotten in their laps. "Let me ask you something," Damon continued. "Is this really what you want your legacy to be? The host who ambushes guests for viral clips? Because from where I'm standing, the Stevens, Colbert who did that brilliant political satire for years, would be ashamed of this version." The words hung in the air like physical things. Colbert's jaw worked as he visibly struggled for a retort. "You don't know anything about my legacy or my intentions," he finally managed. "Clearly not," Damon agreed, gathering his things. "And that's the saddest part of all this." The producer was now physically on stage, whispering urgently to both men, but the damage was done. "Ladies and gentlemen," Colbert said, turning to the audience with a brittle smile, It seems we're experiencing some technical difficulties with our guest's sense of humor tonight. The weak attempt at levity fell flat in the charged atmosphere. Technical difficulties? Damon repeated incredulously. Is that what we're calling your unprofessional behavior now? Colbert's face hardened again. What I call unprofessional is a guest who can't handle anything beyond softball promotion. And what I call unprofessional, Damon countered, now moving toward the exit, is a host who's forgotten the difference between challenging conversation and personal attacks. The audience watched in shocked fascination as Hollywood's good guy, known for his even temperament, headed for the stage exit. The cameras followed him, broadcasting his every move to millions of viewers. "Matt, wait!" Colbert called out, his tone suddenly less confrontational. Perhaps the reality of what was unfolding, a major celebrity walking off his show in the middle of a live broadcast, had finally penetrated his combative stance. Damon paused at the edge of the stage, half-turned. The studio lights caught the tense set of his shoulders, the careful control in his expression. "Give me one good reason," he said quietly. The producer was frantically whispering in Colbert's ear, likely warning of the PR disaster unfolding in real time. The host brushed her away, stepping out from behind his desk and approaching Damon with measured steps. "Because this isn't how either of us wants this to end," Colbert said, loud enough for the microphones to catch. Damon gave a short, humorless laugh. "Seems like exactly how you planned it to end. Maximum drama, maximum social media impact. I'm just not playing my assigned role in your scenario." The audience was so silent you could hear the air conditioning cycling. Every phone was up, capturing what was clearly becoming a defining moment in late-night television history. "You think I planned this?" Colbert asked, gesturing broadly. "To alienate one of Hollywood's most respected actors on live television? I think," Damon replied deliberately, "that you came into this interview with an agenda. Whether you planned exactly how it would unfold is irrelevant. You wanted confrontation, not conversation." For the first time that evening, a flicker of something like uncertainty crossed Colbert's face. The studio remained in suspended animation, crew members frozen in place, audience barely breathing. "If I've been unfair," Colbert began. "If?" Damon interrupted. "There's no if about it, Stephen. You ambushed me with accusations instead of questions. You twisted everything I said to fit some narrative you'd already written in your head." The band leader glanced at his musicians, then tentatively played a few quiet notes, perhaps hoping to diffuse the tension. He immediately stopped when both men looked sharply in his direction. "The audience deserves more than promotional fluff," Colbert insisted, though his voice had lost some of its earlier edge. "And I agree," Damon countered. "They deserve authentic conversation. Challenging questions asked in good faith. Not whatever hatchet job this was supposed to be." A murmur rippled through the audience. On social media, hashtags were trending. Colbert meltdown, Damon walks, late show showdown. Colbert ran a hand through his hair, visibly struggling. For a moment the carefully constructed persona seemed to slip entirely, revealing something more vulnerable beneath. "You want to know what happened?" he asked, his voice lower now. "You want the truth?" "That would make a refreshing change," Damon replied, but he hadn't resumed his exit. Something in Colbert's tone had caught his attention. "I got a call before the show, from upstairs." Colbert gestured vaguely toward the executive offices. "Ratings are down. Viral moments are up on the competition. I was told in no uncertain terms that we needed to create moments that travel, or the show would face restructuring." The admission hung in the air. The production staff exchanged alarmed glances. This was network dirty laundry being aired publicly. "So you decided to blindside me?" Damon asked. "I decided to push buttons," Colbert admitted, "to create tension. I told myself it was just good television." He paused, the facade crumbling further. "But I crossed a line. Several lines." The audience stirred, witnessing something rarely seen on television. Genuine contrition from a major media figure in real time. Damon studied Colbert for a long moment. "You could have told me beforehand. We could have found a way to create compelling television without the character assassination." "Would you have agreed to that?" Colbert challenged, a hint of his usual sharpness returning. "Probably not," Damon conceded with unexpected candor. "Which is why you didn't ask. But that doesn't make it right, Stephen." The floor manager was signaling frantically that they needed to go to commercial, but neither man acknowledged him. This moment had transcended the typical boundaries of broadcast television. "No," Colbert agreed, his voice quiet but picked up perfectly by the microphones. "It doesn't." Something shifted in the studio atmosphere. The confrontation had transformed into something else. Still tense, still raw, but with a different energy. "I'm not going to pretend we can salvage this interview," Damon said. "But I will say this. I've respected your voice over the years, even when I disagreed with it. Tonight was disappointing." Colbert nodded slowly. "For what it's worth, and I understand if it's not worth much right now, I'm sorry." The apology was clearly unexpected. The audience held its collective breath. Damon's expression remained carefully neutral, but he'd fully turned back toward Colbert now. "The easy thing," Damon said finally, "would be to walk out that door and never come back to this show. To let this moment define our professional relationship going forward." "And the hard thing?" Colbert asked. "The hard thing is acknowledging that we all make mistakes, even on national television." Damon paused. "I'm still walking out that door tonight, Stephen. But maybe, after some time and a real conversation off camera, I might walk back in someday." It wasn't forgiveness, not exactly. But it was something, an acknowledgement that bridges, once damaged, need not remain permanently destroyed. Colbert nodded, accepting the terms without further argument. "I think that's more than fair." Damon extended his hand. After a moment's hesitation, Colbert stepped forward and shook it. The exchange was brief, professional rather than warm, but it provided something the audience desperately needed: resolution to the unbearable tension. "Ladies and gentlemen, Matt Damon," Colbert said, gesturing toward his guest with what looked like genuine respect. Damon gave a slight nod to the audience, who responded with thunderous applause, perhaps in relief as much as appreciation, and then walked deliberately off the stage. The cameras followed him until he disappeared behind the curtain, then cut back to Colbert, who stood alone in the center of the stage looking oddly diminished. "We'll be right back," he said quietly, for once without his customary quip. As the show cut to commercial, the audience began buzzing immediately. Phones lit up as people frantically texted and posted about what they'd witnessed. Backstage, producers huddled in emergency mode, attempting to salvage what remained of the broadcast. Within minutes, clips were circulating on every social platform. Commentary ranged from shock to outrage to grudging respect for both men. Damon for standing his ground, Colbert for ultimately acknowledging his misstep. By morning, the confrontation would be analyzed on every news and entertainment program. Think pieces would be written about the pressure on late-night hosts to generate viral content at any cost. Discussions about media ethics would trend across platforms. And two men, both respected in their fields, would wake up to find their professional relationship forever altered by 8 minutes of unscripted television that revealed more truth than either had intended to share. In the weeks that followed, Colbert's ratings would paradoxically surge as viewers tuned in to see if the normally composed host would show further cracks in his persona. But the incident also sparked serious conversations within the industry about the increasingly blurred lines between journalism, entertainment, and manufactured controversy. As for Matt Damon, his dignified exit and measured final words earned him new respect from viewers who appreciated seeing authentic emotion from a Hollywood star. His willingness to acknowledge the possibility of reconciliation rather than leveraging the moment for his own PR advantage, was noted by industry observers as a masterclass in crisis management. The Late Show confrontation ultimately became more than just another viral moment in the endless content stream. It became a reference point for discussions about respect, professionalism, and authenticity in an industry increasingly desperate for attention at any cost.